Hey friends, welcome to 1 Minute with Monée, a podcast where we help busy adults live life with balance and harmony 1 minute at a time. Before we get into our discussion, let's listen in to our quick tip for the week. Hey friends, welcome to the next edition of 1 Minute with Monée. Today we're going to talk a little bit about love. There are two small things that you can do to maintain a healthy relationship. One is communication. Talk about what your love language is, what it is that your partner can do for you to make you feel more loved, and then also understand what they need from you in order for them to feel more loved. The next thing is to be planful. Now, it doesn't matter if you can have a plan that is scheduled far in advance, or even a plan that you can do at the last minute. As long as you have a plan, you're showing that you're being intentional about the time that you spend with your partner. Now, I just received my latest shipment of my Brown Estate Wine Club, and my idea for a plan is to either cook a meal that pairs well with this wine, or take this wine to a new restaurant that my husband and I have been wanting to try. Tell me in the comments what you plan to do for your next date, or how you plan to communicate with your loved one what your love language is. Until next time, be well and be balanced. Hello and welcome to episode 6. I'm joined here today by my husband, Ronald Williams.
Hello, wife.
Hey, husband. How are you? How's your heart?
My heart is well. And yours?
My heart is also well. I'm going to try to get through this interview without blushing. And I'm glad to say that after all these years that we've been married, you still make me blush a little bit, a little nervous.
Thank you. I try.
So in our business, Time Managed, one of the ways that we help couples is to help manage their calendar. Sometimes wives will say, put this on my husband's calendar, or a husband will say, I need date ideas. Can you help me make dinner reservations or look for gifts or send flowers? And I actually appreciate that when my clients are that intentional about their relationships, about making sure that their spouses or partners are happy, and that they are including their partners in what it means or how they are operating in order to make their lives a little bit more balanced and harmonized. What do you think about that?
I think it's definitely important in every relationship. I think we should prioritize each other. And I'm glad that we can help facilitate that in a lot of our clients' lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But also with that, it takes more than just managing a calendar, setting up dates, buying gifts to maintain a positive and healthy relationship. So I would love for us to get into that today. And, we've been married for how many years?
23.
That's right. We've been married for 23 years. We have 3 children, almost empty nesters.
Almost.
I think we're both looking forward to that. But what do you think has worked for us to maintain a healthy relationship?
I think the most important things that have worked for us is I think we're both considerate of each other, and we know each other pretty well at this point in our relationship and marriage. So that's always a plus. But more than anything, we are conscious and considerate of each other's goals, aspirations, the things each other's like, and the things each other don't like. So I think those are 2 of the most important things, because without the knowledge and consideration, you can't really move forward to take action on anything else.
Right. And I think that's a part of the foundation of who you are as a person. I think you've always been considerate. Why are you laughing? It's true.
I agree.
Okay. I agree. You've been very considerate, as a friend, at one time, boyfriend, fiance, husband. So I think I appreciate that consistency, over time. I also think that we are very patient with each other.
Very. very, very patient. Yeah.
And being intentional about that patience and consideration, I think has helped us maintain a healthy relationship. And it always hasn't been that way. We have not been, I will be the first to admit,
I second that.
that,
Second that.
that our relationship has not always been the best for the 23 years. And
Yeah.
I like to tell friends or families, or even in conversation with other married people, that, marriage takes work.
It does.
It's a lot of work.
It does.
It is sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's seasons. So there might be seasons where we may not be getting along, or there might be seasons where I'm going through something personally that may impact the relationship, or same for you. So you have to kind of ebb and flow based on what we're going through individually, what's going on in our families, and how is that impacting our relationship. But what's so beautiful about what we've built is through all the ups and downs, and we always come back to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's kept us here even through the storms.
I agree. And I think what you're talking about is growth. So, I mean, that growth takes patience. To get where we are, to get anywhere in life. It takes patience to deal with the highs and lows as you go through that growth. So I love where we are at this point in our lives. And no, it has not been perfect for all 23 years. But like we touched on before, that patience kind of kept us going.
Yep, absolutely. Now we have a couple children.
3.5 to be exact.
Yep, 3.5. Are you including Anissa, or are you including the dog?
I'm including the dog.
And we raised my sister as well. So technically we've raised 4 children.
4.5.
4.5, yeah.
Yeah.
And with that comes balance. How do you think we maintain balance with our schedules and managing a family through those different stages of their lives, and having to take care of my sister as a teenager? Because we were thrust into being parents of a teenager before our own children were teenagers.
Yep.
And
that's one of the things I love most about you is your loving and selflessness. So you are very ambitious, but you've always been selfless and giving and loving to those in your life. And that does not only include family, but in having to pick up and raise your sister, that was a challenge for both of us, I believe, to have that thrown on us suddenly. But thank God that we were able to.
I would have it no other way. Yeah.
So I think, again, right back around the patience and that selfless and loving attitude allowed you to help her grow in that late period in her adolescence.
Right.
So it's thank God we were there. Thank God we were able to take on that responsibility. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah, I agree. But when we think about how busy we have been these 23 years, so we had Nyla initially, and then about 6 years later came Simone and Nasir, and then Anissa. So how do you think we managed those busy schedules? Like, what are the things that made it work for us to make sure the kids were getting what they needed academically, socially, physically, emotionally, making sure we were on top of our schedules because we were working, running a business, perhaps sometimes working 2 jobs.
Yeah.
So we were really busy.
We were. But again, like you said, we made it work. And I think that comes with communication. We talked about things not being perfect all 23 years. I think it took a lot of growth, especially in the area of communication with us.
Trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely. And in raising 3 kids and your sister, another 4th, really teenager, when she came to live with us, it took that patience, communication, and a lot of sacrifice. You know, one of the things, the popular terms I think we hear all the time is like generational wealth. We're so busy chasing the bag, chasing generational wealth. Dude, you can't forget about the next generation. So you have to be patient. You have to be giving when you talk about caring for another person. It doesn't come easy. It doesn't come automatic, not even for family. So you have to be intentional with that, and you have to communicate if it's going to work. Everybody has to be under the same accord.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I learned during that time is that they don't have to be in everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as a parent, you want them to be smart. So whatever, like club or class they can be in, athletics. So yes, join the track team, join the basketball team, the social clubs and things that they were a part of. And there are a couple key moments in our lives where I just had to say enough is enough. And like when Nyla wanted to stop dancing, like she was dancing, running track, and involved in activities in school. And she's just like, Mom, I'm tired. So I'm like, what do you mean? You're almost 10 years into dance. Why are you going to stop dancing? So I think a part of busyness is maintaining a schedule, of course. So we have our calendars. We know when the summer programs open. And we know when the dance schedule is out and when these deadlines are. So those are all things that are important. But I think it's equally as important to pause, take ourselves out of the equation.
Yeah.
And then think about the kids. Like, what are they telling us?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do they really need? The same thing with Nasir recently. You know, all he wants to do is run track and go to school. And that's it. Anything else he is opposed to doing. And I had to be okay with that.
Typical boy.
But not necessarily, because there are some peers of his that I know who are involved in clubs in school. They do things, you know, outside of school that are going to kind of set them up for their success. And not that he's not going to be successful in what he does, because he's a fantastic student. He's a fantastic athlete. And he's in track is the only sport where you have to continue running in order to get better. Yeah. And so I think that takes a lot of discipline and dedication on his part. And so when I realized that that's what he was communicating to us, then I could say, all right, I can deal with you doing school and track because you are a good student, you are a good athlete, and you know we'll see how things go. But if that's what you're telling me that you need, I don't want to overschedule you.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, throughout all this time, we've always been busy. We've always been running 3 kids, especially when they were younger, to different activities and coordinating and things. So this space that we're in today is actually kind of nice.
It is. It's and we have pulled back a lot. I agree with that. But I think everybody, when your kids are young, you don't know what they're particularly good at. They may show promise in 1 or 2 things, but you want to know what they're excelling at. So
true.
We pour into our kids.
Yeah.
We want them to have every opportunity. Yeah, if you're going to be an all-star tennis player, chess player, basketball player, or if you're just academic a genius. But we all want to pour into our kids to find out what they're good at early, so we can foster that. But at the same time, checks and balances. There's only so many hours in a day. So I agree that it was very important for us to pull back a bit because we can't involve them in everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can't run yourself ragged in that process.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what has been most important for you and I to show up as a team?
Touch right back on communication. Like I said earlier, we're no different from anybody else. We have our things that we have in common, naturally, things that we like. And we both have aspirations of our own and for the unit. So,
but we also don't always agree. So
no, we don't.
It's hard. So even though we're talking about what it is that that needs to happen with the kids or with ourselves, or decisions that need to be made around the house, we still have to show up as a team. So regardless of what the decision ends up being at the end of the conversation, at some point it's either compromising, one person convincing the other person that their way is the best approach. And then the other person like, all right, we'll see if it works your way.
Yeah.
But I do think that at the end of the day, it is about being a team, even if we don't.
You got off easy because I'm very patient and nonchalant. So really? You got off very really? Easy. Very easy. You are getting off very easy.
I beg to differ.
But I think you're absolutely right. And I hate using the word compromise, but that is exactly what it is. Even though you're talking about a relationship and not something at work, it is still a compromise at times because we are two very individual people. We're different. We don't always have the same thoughts. And things that you want to do may not always interest me or may not always align with things I want to do. So it's good to be there for each other, to know what's important to each other and to communicate that.
Yeah.
But vice versa, it's always, you have to be receptive of the other person's, your partners, your kids. You have to be receptive of how they feel about it as well. So it's a little give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in the midst of everything that we have going on, whether it's decisions about the home, raising the children, how do you best show attention and intention about our relationship? Or what has worked well for us when it comes to attention and intention in our relationship?
I think the attention, we all get busy. I think you more so than me. There are times where I am withdrawn or busy. But outside of formal dates, etc., I like to dote on you and show you attention, not just physically. But I always joke with you and tell you how beautiful you are and comment on how fine you are and make sure that you feel flattered.
Make me blush.
Make you blush.
I appreciate that.
I'm glad you do. But other than that, we talked about making compromises and being patient. That has to be intentional. That has to be on your mind. It has to be conscious, something you're conscious of at all times. And it's brain work at times, so everything is not always go with the flow. You can't just maintain status quo even when you love somebody and have been together for years. You have to keep the relationship fresh. You have to stay engaged, and make sure each other is feeling loved and wanted and satisfied and fulfilled. So it's those can be very broad words, and you have to know. You say love language.
Yes. We'll talk about that. Yeah.
I just say you have to know what your partner likes.
Yeah.
But I think that's an appropriate word to love language. You have to know what does it for your partner. You have to always reach and try new things, and you have to be intentional about it because the world will take your time and eat that space if you do nothing with it.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. What's your love language?
Acts of service.
Do you know what mine is?
What are the four? What are the four?
Acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, and physical touch.
Yours are words of affirmation
and
quality time.
Okay. So quality time for sure. Not so much words of affirmation.
Really?
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 Well, let's go with quality time for the sake of this conversation. One of the things that I have had to learn is that you are going to show me love in the way that's comfortable for you. And in the beginning, I don't think I really appreciated that. But now I do. And now I think we're in this very sweet spot that I'll talk about in a moment. But with your love language being acts of service, the way that you show that to me is by bringing me coffee in the morning. You make me breakfast if you're home, which I really miss since you're not going back into the office. So I wish you could work from home again. You used to tell me that, I do the things around the house to make sure that you don't have anything to worry about or that your life is easy. And I don't think I really appreciated that early on. But now I think we're in this sweet spot of I'm appreciating how you love me, but I'm also comfortable with communicating how I also need to feel love. So I love that you, yes, bring me coffee, fix the breakfast. I do appreciate those things. But back in the day, I used to feel like I can do those things. I can make my own breakfast. I can make my own coffee. It's not, it's not rocket science.
But you don't.
But I don't. I may not eat breakfast if you don't bring me breakfast.
Eat breakfast at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Right. And that's not healthy. So like I said, I appreciate it. But in my mind and the way that I operate is that the way that I actually feel love is through quality time. So take me out. Let me know that you want to go to the park with me. Or like yesterday we went on that hike. That was wonderful. I'm so glad you were able to come with me. But those are moments where I prefer for us to make memories in those ways. And I prefer to be out and about doing things, or even if we were home. So I don't want the message to be that we need to be out in order to spend quality time. But it's really about us being together and having the alone time. So why are you laughing?
I just thought of a post that I saw one time. It's men talking about a man and a woman. It said it's not that we don't want you around. We want you here, just not in the same room.
That is funny because sometimes when I leave the house and I get a text, "Where are you?" I'm like, I was in my room for 3 hours chilling, decided to go to the store for a moment, and you wonder where I am. You weren't worried about me for those 3 hours. But I do appreciate, of course, back to the love languages, I do appreciate where you are showing your love language. I'm appreciative of that. And then you're leaning into what makes me feel loved. So you like to be home. You like to just chill and maybe not go out, but we have to be more intentional about that quality time.
Yeah.
And so it's not only for me, and like I said about this sweet spot, it's not only about how I show love, making sure you receive it the way I want you to receive it, but also me being interested in what your ways of being shown love are, like what your love language is, and leaning into that. And then me being comfortable with being able to communicate. And then also just actively thinking about how I can be a better wife. And so those 4 things are really the sweet spot that I think we're in now. And it's a little bit of selflessness, a little bit of communication. And at the end of the day, we're interested in each other and interested in making each other happy.
Yeah, like you said, being intentional, because my love language is acts of service, so that's how I'll usually present it. So, for me being intentional, that means making an effort and remembering that it's First Friday and it's date night.
Yes.
So it's easy for me to do the little things.
And it's because it's not that much to ask, right?
It's not that much.
Take one weekend.
But I'm also more of a homebody than you are.
True.
So I had to, there are times, especially early in our relationship, where you would make me feel like it's something wrong with me for not thinking the way you thought, like not wanting to go out all the time or et cetera.
I apologize
and
for
that's,
that.
we're past that.
Let's go.
We're past that.
We're past that.
But it's not to make it sound huge or anything like that, but I think every couple probably has that. One person may be more sociable than the other. So it's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you have to understand your partner is not the exact same as you.
Yeah.
So being intentional is, you know, I recognize this is something that you love to do. So damn it, we're going to do it. I'm getting out of character a little bit, but hey, it's for my boo.
I appreciate that.
No problem, boo.
The other thing I wanted to touch on, you told me about a quote that you heard the Oregon coach say. Was that yesterday
Yeah.
that they played? What did he say?
He said, when referring to who's getting the attention or all the shots or the buckets, who's getting the limelight. Mm-hmm. He says the team motto is sometimes it's you, sometimes it's me, but it's always us.
Always us.
Always
I really
us.
like that.
I do too.
I really like that. Yeah.
It's a great motto.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about our communication styles. So, because I think that also takes a lot of intention. Even to a point of like you saying thank you for cooking dinner. Like your love language is acts of service. So you, I think, show appreciation for when I am showing acts of service. But for me, cooking is just something I'm supposed to do. Like we have to eat as a family. No. I'm the best cook in the house, so I should be cooking dinner. So communication, of course, is about figuring things out. It's about gratitude. And I think you do a really good job of that. But it just takes me by surprise sometimes when you tell me thank you for the things that I just think I'm supposed to do. But it helps me to pause and realize that you're not taking me for granted.
Yeah, it's about showing appreciation. So it's, yes, I expect, look, this is not barbaric or we're not in caveman times, but I do expect my woman to cook. That's something we communicated before we got married. So
I also enjoy cooking, so it's not a burden for me.
No, not at all. Not that it's a burden for you, but I know sometimes expectations change in relationship. We're not the model. Okay, so it's some relationships neither couple cooks, or sometimes it started off with somebody being a great cook and then they don't cook at all anymore. Or
sometimes we could just be really busy. I had a really busy year last year.
Yeah, you did.
And I would feel a little guilty for the times where I couldn't cook and that you would throw something together for you and the kids.
Yeah.
But it just ebbs and flows. But you don't put me down for those weeks or those times where I may not be able to cook. Like I never feel afraid to, or stressed about not being able to always fulfill your expectations. Right. And so it's healthy, right? Yeah. It's a healthy balance. Like I realize you expect me to cook. I enjoy cooking. So I think that's one of the ways that I show love to my family. But if I can't, I'm not stressed about it because I know you got me. And I think that's where the teamwork comes in.
Yeah.
I also think that because of our communication styles, when we have a disagreement, it also makes me feel safe to like mess up, quote unquote, in a way, because I don't feel like, you're going to scream at me. You're going to, we have a healthy way of communicating, regardless of whether it's for positive things or for negative things. If we have a disagreement or not, we don't do the whole screaming.
That's one thing I'm very intentional about. One, I'm not that person. If I have to scream at you about something or constantly tell you to do something, and then what are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? So that's not who I am. That's not how I would communicate with anybody. There's a time and place where it's perfectly okay to lose yours, but with your loved ones, I don't think that's ever the time or place. There have been times we've been mad at each other, or we've had heated discussions and conversations and flat out arguments. But one thing I would never be is verbally abusive or over aggressive with my loved ones. I am a 6'3", 240-pound black man. And with that said, a lot of people say I'm soft spoken.
Mm-hmm.
That is intentional. It took a lot of, I don't want to say practice, but just awareness with that.
Yeah.
Because even when I'm walking around a corner or walking behind someone, if they turn around or we walking around the corner and collide, I startle people.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up conscious of that. And not to say anybody should tiptoe around other people, but I recognize the presence that I carry.
Mm-hmm.
And had people tell me I'm scary looking at times.
Oh my goodness.
Which I don't get.
If only they knew, right?
Right.
You are like the soft teddy bear of love.
Yeah, so it's that's something I've been very conscious about. I never want to berate or be verbally abusive to anyone I love. You know, the streets is different.
It's a time and place for some of that to come out. But in the home, we want to have a home of peace.
Yeah.
Right.
And in anything, you know, where you're talking about dealing with your loved ones or anybody outside of the home, it's you know, the quickest reaction or the quickest response to get you the most severe reaction these days. So you can ruin a relationship in seconds with your mouth.
For sure.
You can get your ass in deep trouble out here in this world in seconds with your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that my mom instilled in me, you know, and just through experience, through life, I've learned to be conscious of what you say and how it comes across.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. But I think all of that is rooted in respect. Because if you didn't respect me or our home or our children, then I don't think some of those things would come out. And I think it's commendable of you that you are self-aware. Mm-hmm. That's like another thing that we should unpack about how Black men are sometimes perceived as being aggressive or scary before they even open their mouths. But that's another whole topic for a different podcast.
For sure.
But I look at it as respect. Like, you respect me, I can be who I am wholly, completely. I can have an opinion, express that opinion without any egos. I can be, you know, who I am without feeling like I am stepping on your toes or infringing upon what you may feel or think. And I offer you the same thing. You can be who you are, completely, fully, wholly. And we can have a conversation about whatever it is that needs to be accomplished, whether we agree on it or not.
Yeah.
I think this is healthy communication, and we don't have to do it with all the kick down, drag out, kind of yelling, screaming, energy.
I agree. And I think we've grown, or let me toss it back at you. How do you think we've grown in that field of respect? Because I think, you know, early in the marriage, we were typical kids like everybody else at one point. So we, like I said, we've done a lot of growing together.
Absolutely.
So how do you think, when you think back to early on in our relationship, you know, the Palms of Appalachia days.
Oh my goodness.
How do you feel that we've grown since then with respecting each other?
Tremendous growth. I don't know that I respected you early on, honestly, but I would not have said that out loud back then. We got married when we were very young, before our brains even developed. So I was 20. Seriously, I was 20 and you were 22. And I think they say that the brain does not fully develop until you're like 23. So just that in itself is very telling about the stage that we were in from a brain development perspective, right? We had a very young child. And it's just a lot. I think it's just a lot to handle. Yeah. And so, and
I still think we were more mature than most at that time.
For sure, we took responsibility for what we had going on.
Yeah.
But because you are who you are, back to the way that you operate and communicate, at the core of who we are, we don't like to really argue. Like, that's just not how we are. So the unhealthy part of that, though, is saying whatever. I'm gonna go do me. You go do you. And we're gonna raise this baby and hope for the best. So it wasn't necessarily that I couldn't verbalize that I didn't respect you, but I think because of my actions, it showed that I likely did not respect you, because it was like, well, I'm not getting quality time from him, and he wants me to stay home. I'm gonna go do me.
Yeah.
And so, but like you said, growth, that is like the key, the key to all of this. Growth and not giving up. Like, could you imagine? Like, if we would have given up early on, or even throughout the years, like, let's just say year 1 and then maybe another bout around year 7. The beauty about all of this is that we stuck together, we grew, and we learned.
Yeah.
And through that learning, we just had to continue to vow to be better for each other. And there are a couple key moments, and I've shared this publicly before, that where I'd get not visibly, but I would, maybe it is visibly, but I would just start crying.
Yeah.
Because I know, so emotional. But there were tears of joy, because I remember when our relationship wasn't strong.
Yeah.
And so to just be in your presence and just feel like I am so in love. It sounds like a fairy tale, but no, but I think, but the point is, I remember when it was not all good.
The struggles.
I remember when we were struggling, when we were younger and not communicating well, but we didn't fight because we're not confrontational with each other. So we just stuck it out. Like, grin and bear it, regardless of how much I may have been hurting or feeling misunderstood or feeling like you didn't really love me. So I know what all those emotions feel like.
Yeah.
And so we've grown tremendously because of what we've been through and because we did not give up on each other.
Yeah. There were definitely some stick with it days early on. Stick with it, as the old folks used to say. And
not even early on. But I feel like, I can't even think of the year, but
there were days.
After my mom passed.
Yeah.
I think there's moments, there's moments, there's key life events that really can put a strain on the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, at the beginning of the marriage is one of them. But as you think about how the kids grow, what you and I have been through, work changes. It's so many outside stressors that impact the relationship that we could have given up year 1, year 7, year 15. But we're still here.
Yeah.
We're absolutely still here because
the struggles and the outside influences are so real. I think it's worse in today's age. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's I really don't worry, but I feel like it's a lot more pressure on young people today that are out here trying to date.
Yeah.
Financially, bad influences. And we had that too, but social media wasn't there. There wasn't just so much visibility into what everybody else is doing, what everybody else has.
Yes. Yeah.
The craziness that goes on in this world. And so I think even though we had it hard at times with struggle, I felt like the time in which we did have our kids was a blessing. They Nasir being the youngest, being born in 2008. I feel like the 2000s were definitely some interesting times, but I think we had kids at the time that was right for us.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key for all of this. And for anyone listening, you have to decide amongst each other, like, what's best for you, whether it's how you manage your household, your finances, raising children, and stick with that. Don't worry about what's going on social media, on TV, or even your neighbor or somebody up the street or a friend. You know, everybody's making decisions for what is best for their family and their household. We've done the same thing, and I think that is what has kept us strong,
Absolutely.
even through some of the struggles.
And you know, I know we do a lot of posting, like vacations, etc. Well, I should say you do. But I think there's something said for keeping things private. I don't want to sound old. I don't want to sound like our parents or grandparents who didn't have internet. But it's I think there's something said for keeping things private. When you are trying to build and you're trying to be a cohesive unit and you're dealing with struggles, the last thing you need is outside influences, placing blame, placing judgment, giving bad advice. The unit needs to be the unit. So there's nothing more sacred than your family, your household. If that's not in order, your life is not going to be in order. I've learned that out very early. And on that, I don't give a lot away, private stuff away. But I remember one time during one of our rockier times, you know, we were going through it. You do you, I do me. And it was so hard for me to do me because, you know, we weren't in unit. Things weren't right. And so things weren't right in me. You know, it was hard to operate at work. It was hard to focus because your base is tearing apart. Yeah. Your foundation's being ripped up. So you gotta take care of home first. Like I said, you don't always have to agree, but you always have to communicate and make sure you're on the same page when it comes to the health and wealth of the family.
Yep, absolutely. I think through all of this that I've learned that I'd rather do life with you than without you.
Absolutely, same.
And I think that's what comes to mind when you describe what you just mentioned. Yeah, and it makes me excited and look forward to what life is going to be like as empty nesters. So when you said that we had Nasir, our youngest, at the right time, what I thought about was yes, because you know we're not going to be that old before all our kids are gone, and we have so much more life to live. But I know that's not necessarily what you meant. But I think that's a part of it too. You know, having children and raising children is just a very small part of our relationship and our life together. That's a part of our story, our legacy. But what's even more beautiful is our relationship and the longevity of that, even outside of our raising our kids. And that's what I look forward to.
Yeah, and I really feel like it sounds cliche, but we really have grown better with time. Had good times, had bad times, grown through it all. But I feel like we are at our best point in life right now. I love the woman that you've grown to be. And not just your physical looks, but I do want to point that out. We have grown so much together. I've seen you in different stages, from the perms.
Oh my goodness.
To the weave. Not that much weave.
Not that much weave.
But I've seen with the perms, the weaves, and the latter stage, the now stage, which is the natural look.
Yes.
It works so well on you.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh.
One of the things that I love is that you do have natural hair, and it doesn't have to be locks, but I love the fact that you have natural hair, and I feel like it's one of the best looks you've had in our lifetime.
Do you remember what you told me when I started growing my locks? They were pretty mature, I think, at this time when you said this. Do you remember what you said?
What?
I think you said something to the effect of you found your look. Like this looks really good on you. And that made me feel so good because and you may not know this specifically, but when you start growing locks, And, I cut my hair off because I was trying to stand in solidarity with my mom because she was battling breast cancer at the time. And so I had a afro that was about probably 3 to 5 inches.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, I do not know what else to do with this afro. I was so tired of it.
Look, not calling you ugly, but the ugly phase is what I hear people say.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you have locks, you get them done, and you can't wash your hair all the time because you don't want the locks to to unravel. And so there is a phase where you kind of feel a little ugly. It's a little rough, And so for you to have gone through that, and then you affirm me to say that you have found your look and that you love it. That was like, I will never forget that. And I've had locks for 12 years, but I will never forget.
And I do remember that phase because I had that same thought. Like,
but you ain't say it out loud.
I didn't say it out loud.
Okay.
I had that same thought. Like what's going on here? Like, what are we doing? So,
I'm glad you stuck with it. I'm glad I stuck with it. So, all right. Well, to wrap up, tell me what's your top 3, and I could probably guess based on our conversation what your top 3 pieces of advice are for maintaining a healthy relationship.
The top one, it has to be communication. I'm not a mind reader. You're not a mind reader. I don't know what you're feeling if you don't tell me. Of course, 23 years into the game, I can look at you and kind of tell what's going on most times. But again, we're not mind readers.
Right.
So you got to communicate. You have to be intentional about loving that other person. Things don't just happen. Dates don't just happen.
Yep.
Your partner, your man, your wife, they're not going to always just wake up feeling empowered and loved. And, it doesn't just happen like that. You have to pour into each other. So you have to be intentional about that. Same with your family, your kids. And the third most important thing, have a little patience. Have a little patience before you react. Have a little patience before you respond. Have a little patience and grace for your partner because they're not perfect. We're all still growing. And have a lot of patience with yourself. I hear you say a lot. Our daughter says a lot of the word validate. Validate your feelings, validating my feelings. I think it's an interesting term, but I think it's true. You do have to have the patience with yourself where you can reflect and validate your feelings. Because, you might get some news or your partner might say something that send you there like that. How you want a response may not be positive. And the way you feel about them might not be positive. But you have to have patience. You have to self-reflect and consider how you're feeling about it as well. Make sure you're not overreacting or anything like that. But those are my top 3.
Okay. Those are good. I have 2 that I would add. One, my pleasure should not be your priority only in the bedroom. So providing a safe space for me to communicate, for me to be who I am, and to have a special interest in your partner is important. And the other thing is to know that any relationship that you love, that is important to you, is worth fighting for. So whatever that means, continue to fight for the relationship if it is a healthy relationship, whether that means therapy or having some tough conversations, radical honesty, which goes back to communication. But it's just like another layer of it. So those are my 2 that I would add. Thank you so much for being here. Like, this was really fun.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Williams.
Right. And it's even more special because I know that you are a private person, and you prefer to just stay to yourself. So to be here and to to speak on camera about our love and about our relationship is really nice. This was fun. I appreciate it. I'm grateful.
I'm happy. I'm always happy to be there for you. And I think the topic is not only important, it's relevant. Like I said, we're not all the same, but if I can give you anything, if I can give anybody else, not advice, but just let them know what works well for me and us, hey, I'm there.
Yeah, you never know who you're inspiring.
Never know.
For sure. Well, to our audience, we hope that you were inspired and enjoyed this conversation. Maybe we'll do a podcast, a relationship podcast next.
Okay,
One day. But until next time, be well and be balanced. Thank you for joining me this week. Let's continue the conversation on social media at 1 Minute with Monée on all channels. Also, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.